Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is GBay99. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we are back with another episode of Investing Week, where today we're going to be talking about should you buy a home? Should you go buy a home? Should you invest in real estate? Or should you just rent forever? Because this is something that a lot of people get wrong. A lot of people view renting as just throwing their money away, which is a very big mistake. That is not what renting is. Renting, it has a lot of advantages that owning a home has a lot of disadvantages compared to renting, and a lot of people don't consider them. Particularly in America, there's this dream of always wanting to eventually own your own home. And for some people, if you want to start a family, if you want to get married, if you want to have children, I would say you probably do want to eventually move into a home. But renting has a lot of advantages that most people don't consider. And oftentimes, people just think of owning a home as this great investment. Up until 2007, 2008, the real estate market, I don't believe, ever crashed in the U.S. There was never a crash in the real estate market until 2007, 2008. And, a lot of people, because of that, a lot of people grew their kids up thinking owning a home, that's the best investment you can ever make. You're paying money down to this thing that's going to eventually grow in value forever. And that's not always the case. The math is going to be different depending on where you live in certain circumstances based on where you live. But let's go ahead and go through an example here and show you guys just the numbers when you compare owning a home to renting, okay? So let's go say we want to buy a home, and we want to buy a home that is worth $250,000. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys, actually. But we're going to go and we're going to buy a home that's worth $250,000. There we go. A $250,000 home is pretty reasonable as long as you don't live in New York or LA or someplace that's super expensive and crazy. Assuming you live in like the rest of normal America, a $250,000 home is like a little bit under the median for home prices, but you could find a decent home for $250,000 in a really decent smaller town city, as long as it's not, Seattle or Austin, Texas, or somewhere that has crazy high prices. So a $250,000 home, that'll get you like a 3 or 4 bedroom home, depending on where. And when you go and buy a home, you have to put some money down. You're going to get a mortgage, and when you get a loan, you have to put a certain percentage down. Usually 20% is what most people shoot for, and 20% of $250,000 is $50,000. So we will put $50,000 of a down payment down on this home. That means we have to get a $200,000 mortgage from a bank or a lender. And one thing people don't often consider is when you go and buy a house, you have to go through a closing. You'll go to a closing company that will go and transfer the deed from the previous owner's name into your name. And doing all of that, there's about $3,000 in costs that are associated with that, but you can roll those into the loan itself. So essentially, we're going to have a $203,000 loan with the loan itself in addition to the closing costs. Then let's say we get a pretty good interest rate of 4.5% on a 30-year mortgage. I'm not too sure what interest rates are today. My interest rate was a little lower than that. But let's say we get a 4.5% interest rate on a 30-year mortgage on this $203,000 loan. Well, that means we're going to be paying about $370,000 over the life of the loan. $370,000 over the course of that 30 years. About $167,000 of that is going to be in interest. But when you pay interest on a loan, you can deduct that in the United States. When you deduct interest from your taxes, you can deduct it from your taxes. So you have to be working. You have to have a job where you're working. But assuming you're working all those 30 years, and let's say we're working at about the 17% tax bracket, that means we can deduct about we can deduct all the interest, and we'll get about $28,000 back over the course of the life of the loan. The way that interest deduction works is, it depends on the tax bracket that you're in. So if you're in the 30% tax bracket and you have $10,000 in interest that you're deducting at the end of the year on your taxes, then that means you get about $3,000 back in your deduction. because it's based on your tax bracket. But right here, we're assuming we're at the 17% tax bracket, which is like right smack dab in the middle, I believe, in terms of like the different brackets there are. Anyway, though, point being, this interest, we get to deduct it, and we'll get $28,000 back as a rebate, the government subsidizing us owning a home. So that means we're going to effectively pay $139,000 in interest. Another thing you have to consider is property tax. When you buy a home, depending on where you are, this number is going to be different. If you live in a really nice place, it'll be kind of higher. 1.7% is a pretty high percent property tax, but just to own the home, you're paying a little bit of money to the county that goes to the schools and everything, you know, the fire department, everything that's around your home that's going to be serving your home and protecting you and everything. So we're going to pay about 1.7% property tax because we're going to say we want to live in a really nice place, which means that's 1.7% on the $250,000 home, 1.7% on the home itself, right? The value of the home, word I'm looking for, value. So 1.7% on the value of the home, that's going to be about $4,250. It's also important to note that this number is going to go up because if the value of the home increases, then you're going to be paying more in property tax. Now, I don't really know if, I'm not too sure how to calculate this over the course of 30 years, assuming the home increases in value and everything. So we're just going to assume that we pay a flat property tax and that this doesn't really increase all that much. So we're going to be paying about $128,000 just in property tax over the life of the loan. And then once that's over, we still have to pay that property tax every year. But over the course of the 30 years, we're going to be paying $128,000 in property tax. And then we also are paying, of course, our mortgage, which that $370,000, when we subtract the $28,000 we get back from the government subsidizing our home, we have to pay $342,000 in our mortgage over the course of that 30-year period, which that means over the course of 30 years, we're paying $470,000 to get this home. And then at the end of it, we have a home, right? We have a home, we have a house, it's all ours, nobody else's. Now, that house that we have is going to accrue in value over the course of 30 years. And according to Zillow, it's on average like 4%. The value of the home will go up about 4% every year. So assuming that we just get about a 4% annualized return, maybe there's a crash or something in the housing market, but it still averages out to 4%. Then we get an $810,000 house. So that's pretty good. We get $810,000 when we had to pay $470,000 or $810,000 in value in our net worth, while paying $470,000. That's a pretty nice chunk of change, right? What is that? $340,000 over the course of 30 years. We made $340,000 with this purchase, and that was, that's pretty good. We got a lot of value out of that. But let's assume we rent, okay? Let's assume we rent in a similar place to where we bought that home. So to rent in this area, or to rent in a similar Midwestern area, you're only going to be paying about $800 in rent. That's something that, I know if you're in Seattle or if you're in New York or if you're in LA, you're going to pay a lot more in rent. But in the rest of America, rent is pretty cheap. So about $800 in rent would probably get you a decent sized apartment that is, probably about as nice as the home we would have gotten. So let's say we get $800 in rent that we have to pay every 12 months over the course of 30 years. We're going to spend $288,000 renting. And then at the end of it, we don't have anything, right? We've just been renting that space. That's all we got. But let's also say that we had $50,000. Let's say, we thought about buying a home, which meant that we had $50,000 to put down, but we chose not to. So we can take that $50,000, we can throw it into the stock market. It'll be, it'll gain about 10% every year. And then we're going to end with $872,000 just in our pocket. That's a pretty good deal. If we had $50,000 to throw into that house, we could have invested it into the market and then got $872,000 over the course of that 30 years. Whereas otherwise we would have had a home that's worth, about $810,000. It could be worth a lot more too. This home could be worth more than $1 million at this point, but conservatively speaking, about $810,000. But that's also tied up in a home. We could have $872,000 if we just rented. So renting looks pretty nice. Even though you're not throwing this money, this $288,000, that's a lot of money that you're just throwing away renting, but you're not throwing it away. You're getting something out of that. You're getting space to live in, and you're getting freedom too. You're getting freedom to move around, to go wherever you want, to do whatever you want. And you could have also made a lot of money still through renting, through spending that extra money that otherwise would have been thrown into a down payment on a house. So right here, renting actually looks like it might be, I'm not too sure if this is a fair comparison, $800 to $250,000 on a home. This is like a 3 or 4 bedroom home, and this is probably about a 2-bedroom apartment. So you are getting less space here, but, it'll change a little bit if you go up to about $1,000 apartment, $2,000 apartment, then suddenly renting a home or buying a home looks a lot better than renting. And also, when you buy a home, you can choose to put down a lot less than $50,000. You could put 10% down, or you could put as low as 5% down and invest the rest of that money the same way this guy invested his money. And, you can see in different situations, renting might look better than buying. In my opinion, when you go and choose to own a home, you shouldn't choose it because you're trying to make money. To get to the point of this video, owning a home isn't about going and trying to use it as an investment, in my opinion. If you want to go and invest in real estate, you want to go invest in a second home, rent it out to people or something, you can choose to do that. But in my opinion, owning a home really shouldn't be about trying to use it as an investment that you're going to sell a few years down the line. Also, one thing to note is that, hang on, let me pull something up here and show you guys. When you buy a home, this is also assuming you're staying in it for 30 years. When you're buying a home, one of the things about it is there's something called an amortization chart, which shows that when you buy a home for the first 5 years, you're paying almost exclusively interest. So if you choose to sell that home within 5 years of you purchasing it, you're not going to be making any money. You might actually be losing money. Here's an amortization chart right here. So you can see that at first you are putting all your money down towards the interest, and then only towards the end of the loan are you putting a lot more money down towards the principal on the home. So at the end, point being, I know some of this might be confusing to some of you guys, but the point being, when you go and choose to own a home, you shouldn't be choosing to go and buy a home because you think it's just the best investment that you could possibly make. You could make more money, depending on your situation, through renting and investing money through other avenues. At the end of the day, renting is still a very viable option for you. Now, if you get a really good deal on a home, if you can get a really nice, I'm a homeowner. The home I bought, I got a very good deal on it. I got it for a lot cheaper than what it was really worth. So, I in theory could make a lot more money through selling it, but when I chose to buy a home, I didn't choose to buy it because I thought, oh, I'm going to flip it and make a quick buck. I'm going to sell it in 5 years and I'm just using it to get rich. I bought a home because there are certain advantages to owning a home, right? You get to have your own yard. You get to go and hang stuff on the wall without having to worry oh, I'm going to have to pay the landlord for putting holes in this wall. You can go and do whatever you want with it. You can go and renovate it however you like. You can be as loud as you want and not have to worry about neighbors. You get to go and it's your own space for you to do what you want. You can raise a family. You get to stay in a certain spot. You don't have to worry about rent hikes or whatever. That's really the thing that you should look towards if you want to choose to own a home. You should think this is where I want to set down roots. This is where I want to raise a family. This is where I want my kids to go to school. This is where I want to, grow old with my wife. You don't want to think, oh, I'm going to use this house to make a little bit of money. At least that's my opinion. Don't go and choose to invest in real estate because you want to go and buy a home to live in and just sell it in a few years, because oftentimes you can get better returns elsewhere. You can still, sometimes owning a home still is a very good, sometimes you can still own a home and make a lot of money with it. You can just choose to you could probably put $7,000 down for 5%. What's 5% of $25,000 or $250,000? You could probably put 10 or 15% down on this home or on this circumstantial home. You could put, $10,000 down and invest the $40,000 and then still make a lot of money. And also, I'm sure a lot of renters don't have about $50,000 to throw into the stock market. But at the end of the day, the point of this is don't look at real estate as something that you want to go and just use as a way to get rich, because oftentimes there are other avenues for you to make just as much, if not more money, with a lot of benefits. Because, when you rent, a lot of utilities are covered. You can choose to move and go move around the country, go live elsewhere, do whatever the hell you want, pick up and go at the end of the year and not have to worry about being tied down to something. When you have a home, there are different benefits. You can borrow money against the value of your home. You can get a home equity loan if you so choose for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, the home is a very illiquid asset. It's not as easy to get value out of your home compared to going and just selling stocks. If you go and invest $50,000 into the S&P 500, you can just sell that whenever you want, and then immediately you have money, right? There's a lot of stuff here that needs to be taken into consideration, but at the end of the day, point being, don't just look at owning a home as the best investment ever, because oftentimes renting can be better for other people. Just look to own a home once it's something that's important to you. Once it's important to you that you can set down roots, and once you choose to get married and raise a family, that's really when you should be looking to own a home, unless you get some sort of fantastic deal, or unless in your particular situation, maybe you have really low property tax. Maybe you get a really good deal on the house. Maybe you can still put down, a smaller down payment and invest the rest of it. And maybe you really do just want to own a home for whatever reason. There are still reasons to own a home, but don't just look at it as, oh, I got to own a home because renting is a waste of money. That's a bad way to think. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching today's episode of Investing Week. I will see you all tomorrow. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.